RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, IFBB pros with the Olympia just 2.5 weeks away. Whatever it is on your mind, it is all on the table. Of course, our thoughts and everyone affected down in Houston right now. We strongly encourage you, if you know any donation efforts or any relief efforts that are helping those that are displaced, strongly encourage you to donate generously. And then, of course, Dave, last week we recapped it on Iron Rage and Heavy Muscle Radio. Two monumental losses in the bodybuilding world: Dallas McCarthy, Rich Piana. This and, oh, by the way, Olympia 2 weeks away. Where do we begin?
Yeah, it's, Flex Lewis texted me earlier today. He wanted to thank me for the tribute I did to Dallas McCarver. And, a lot of people are saying Josh Lenardowitz has been really traumatized because he came home and he found Dallas dead. Yeah, that's terrible. And I know that Josh is going through a lot of mental anguish right now. But Flex Lewis, considered Dallas like his little brother. I mean, he would train at his gym every single day. Remember, Josh was just visiting from Australia. Flex and Dallas were together every single day, and Flex is really, really, really hurt over this whole thing, and I can tell he's hurting, and maybe people didn't realize it because, just because he wasn't there when the guy died. I mean, this is someone he spent almost every day of his life with. So I really send my my prayers out there and the energy that I can muster out to both Flex and Josh, because what a terrible thing to happen right before the Olympia. I mean, it just messes with your head. I mean, it's one thing to lose your friend. It's another thing to lose a bodybuilder who's, who you train with every day. It's like, it's hard to explain to people. It's almost like having a girlfriend when you have a training partner, because you spend a lot of time with them. Think about it. You train 5-6 days a week. You're there every day with them. You work out. You talk about all your problems with them as you do in set after set, and you develop a very close relationship with them. And when you lose that, it's like a death in the family, And I guess Flex considered Dallas like to be his younger brother almost, and I feel terrible for both of them. But I know that they're both champions. They're going to suck it up. They're going to get through this Olympia. They're going to use that pain as motivation to be better than they were before. And I know they're both dedicating this show and hopefully, in Flex's case, the victory to the memory of Dallas McCarver. So, we're always going to have losses, not only in bodybuilding, but in every sport out there. And this was a particularly hard week because of the loss of two of those guys. And as well as Kyle Norris, we mentioned on Heavy Muscle Radio, another top-level amateur bodybuilder back in the 90s that maybe a lot of people didn't know who he was, but he was also, we lost him in the same week, so we have to include him in the loss of some great athletes. Here's a guy who came in second behind Mike Monterazzo the year Mike won the USA Championships in '91. So it was a tough week in bodybuilding. Hopefully next week will be a much better week, and the week after that at the Olympia will be a super positive week.
Let's go to the questions. Dom_Molinari. Pretty simple question, but he wants to know how to improve digestion.
The best way to improve digestion is not by taking supplements. It's by eating the foods that agree with your body. Here's a weird, stupid analogy, but when I was back in the day eating McDonald's every day, okay, when I had my McDonald's meal because I felt I needed the extra calories to gain weight, and it did work for me, obviously. If I would eat the pickles and the onions they would put on all their cheeseburgers just as part of the whole their recipe, so to speak, I would have indigestion all day. If I told them to hold the pickles and onions, which I invariably did, for most of the years that I ate the McDonald's, I never got indigestion. So certain things will just not sit right in your stomach. So if you want to improve digestion, you got to do like a root out. You got to figure out what doesn't sit right. Do you have a lactose intolerance? Maybe that's why you're getting gas and diarrhea when you take certain whey proteins that are not, whey isolates. Or if you eat cheeses or certain milk products that upset your stomach. Do you have a wheat intolerance, or a wheat allergy, also known as gluten intolerance? If that's the case, then don't eat foods with gluten in it, If you have a caffeine if caffeine really makes your intestinal tract all screwed up and you get, diarrhea from it, or you get an upset stomach or an acid stomach, then don't use caffeine. So you have to, by process of elimination, figure out what you digest well and what you don't. I have clients that I like to carb people up on rice. Rice bloats them and doesn't sit well in their stomach. So am I going to make them use rice? No, we use white potatoes and it's perfect. So you got to figure out what works for your body and what doesn't, and stick with what works. People always said that I was like a machine because I always ate the same foods every day. The reason I did that was because I knew I could digest and assimilate them well. Why would I eat foods that are going to bother my stomach? It's just, it's logical, and I think a lot of people are so concerned about, I want to eat this, I want to eat that. If it doesn't sit well and you don't feel good after you eat it, don't eat it.
Go to Brad McCaff. Dave, is it true that Arimidex is harder on the body than Aromasin?
When someone says harder on the body, I don't really know what that means. As far as you're talking about toxicity, I don't believe any of the aromatase inhibitors, Femara, Arimidex, or Aromasin, have any toxicity whatsoever. They all work by pretty much the same mechanism. They inhibit the aromatase enzyme, which blocks the conversion of testosterone into estrogen. Okay? We don't want a lot of estrogen in our body, especially as men. We take a lot of testosterone, we're going to convert a lot of that to estrogen. We take an aromatase inhibitor to block that process from occurring. We don't want to take too much of it because we don't want to get rid of all the estrogen, but we want to get rid of a lot of the estrogen. And so whether you take Arimidex, Femara, or Aromasin, it doesn't matter. Some people don't respond to some of those so well, and how do you know if you respond if you don't? You go for blood work. If you're taking Arimidex and you go for blood work and you still have high estrogen, then it's not working, the Arimidex. Try Femara. Also, some of these aromatase inhibitors that people are using are research chemical ones, meaning someone's making them in their bathroom, or literally in their bathroom. And maybe they're just not high quality ingredients. Maybe they're not putting enough in there. They're not dosing them properly. So there's a lot of variables, but usually by far, most aromatase inhibitors work the same.
Vlad Calatin, does it matter if Dbol is in capsule or pill form?
It doesn't really matter. I mean, I've seen it in both. I mean, the pharmaceutical grade Dianabol is usually in pill form. Those are the ones that I always used back in the day, but a lot of people, because they make underground versions of it, they buy the raw powder, they put it in little capsules. So it theoretically should work the same, assuming people are giving you what they say they're giving you. If it's a 10 milligram capsule, then I hope you're getting 10 milligrams of Dianabol. If you're not, then it's just not being dosed right. But theoretically, the pill and the capsule should be the same.
Austin Morel training, will overconsumption of caffeine suppress your thyroid from recovering and eventually not needing thyroid medication due to adrenal fatigue?
Well, adrenal fatigue is a separate gland from the thyroid gland. The thyroid gland sits in your neck. The adrenal glands sit on top of your kidneys. You have two of them. The adrenal glands produce corticosteroids like cortisol, which will help raise blood sugar in times when blood sugar is too low. They release adrenaline, okay? They release, DHEA, and they release aldosterone, which is responsible for sodium balance. So if the adrenal glands are what we call fatigued, it means they're not producing either DHEA, cortisol, or aldosterone. It has nothing to do with your thyroid gland, okay? Caffeine doesn't have any effect in the sense that it will help the gland produce more or less, and that goes for the thyroid gland or the adrenal glands. Now, the thyroid gland produces a hormone known as thyroxine, or T4. That's the inactive version of it. It gets activated in the bloodstream and turned into T3, or triiodothyronine. That controls our metabolic rate, how fast our bodies metabolize carbohydrates, fats, and proteins. So they're two separate hormones that work by two different mechanisms. Caffeine, obviously in excessive amounts, can certainly cause the adrenal glands to overproduce adrenaline. It can stress the body out. When the body gets stressed out, it releases more cortisol. If theoretically you can exhaust the supply of hormones from the adrenal glands, that theoretically would be called adrenal fatigue. Has nothing to do with your thyroid gland, okay? What do you do for adrenal fatigue? Rest, stop all the stimulants, okay? Let your body just regenerate and rejuvenate these hormones. Very few people will permanently suppress their adrenal glands. It's very hard to do that. Although there are some people out there who have legitimate hormonal problems where they have a disease where their adrenal glands are no longer producing what they need to produce. But that's a very rare occurrence. Most people, they're just overusing stimulants, or they're not resting enough, or they're overtraining. And the best solution for that is rest. That's the only thing that will rejuvenate them.
Morgan Mac. Bodybuilding, how far out from show day should you switch from long esters to short esters? What are the best orals for the last 6 weeks of contest prep? So let's go with the first one. How far out from show day should you switch from long esters to short esters?
To be totally honest with you, I do use short-acting esters like trenbolone acetate I recommend that people use, or Masteron, which is drumstanolone, propionate. I like those fasting. Winstrol, which is a fast-acting. But I don't change my testosterone. I think there should always be a baseline of testosterone. The truth is that whether you're using long-acting or short-acting, it doesn't really matter. I know people are always like, water retention. Everyone's fluid retention. They're obsessed with that around showtime. The bottom line is that you're taking diuretics at the end. You are restricting fluid the last 24 hours. You're not going to hold fluid if you have the process down properly. If you have a right protocol that works for you, and that's where a coach comes in. I do a lot of last week contest preps with people because they can get themselves lean, but they don't know how to dry out properly and do that whole last week. So that's something that I do on a regular basis for a lot of guys, just to get them through that, because it's hard to really know how to do things the right way. But the truth of the matter is, whether you're on test propionate or test enanthate, you're still got testosterone in your system. I don't have people stop it per se until maybe, and the only reason I have them stop it maybe 2 or 3 days before the show, and that's just because I don't want the injection site to be swollen. It has nothing to do with having testosterone or not in your system. You want testosterone in your system. It makes you look good, okay? It makes you look full, the muscles. You don't pull out something if you're looking really good at the end, because now you're just looking to change things up too much and you're looking for problems. So I wouldn't worry about the ester length. Obviously, you don't want to be taking all long-acting, injectables, because then it's hard to predict when they're going to release. I like short-acting stuff, but the testosterone should be just baseline testosterone. Don't worry about which tester you're using. Matter of fact, a lot of people have really inflammatory reactions to test propionate. It hurts a lot. It swells the injection site. Not a good idea to be using that if that's the case in your particular instance. Now, I know you also, the second part of the question, I think, was the orals. What orals should you take?
Yeah, what are the best orals for the last 6 weeks of contest prep to use?
I don't usually have my guys do a lot of orals because they're doing so many other drugs and their body's under so much stress. You really don't need that toxicity in your body. There's more than enough injectables that you can take care of business with that. The only thing I usually have guys do is do halotestin, which is an oral, the last 2 weeks, because it really hardens the body up. It's not something you really want to take more than 2 weeks because it's kind of toxic, and it makes you feel like really in a bad mood to put you in. So 20 milligrams a day for the last 14 days is more than adequate.
Let's go to a good question on. Oh, this one's Johnny Styles is gonna like, from Raquel Rain. Do you see the wellness division coming to the USA in the near or distant future?
I don't think that they're going to institute it as a division, okay, where it would have like recognition on an Olympia level. I could see people adding it to shows as a maybe a sideshow, like as like a little, almost like the way they were holding bikini contests back before there was a bikini division. They would have these model searches and bikini. I could see that might be of interest. Like I wouldn't mind having a show and having a wellness class maybe at the intermission or something like that, and just have the girls up there, maybe do 15-20 minutes of it, because it's fun. But I don't think it's really a physique division, because of the fact that it's not necessarily all about conditioning. It's more about just the shape of the body. And so it's hard to determine who wins, because it's not based on conditioning. It's more based on your genetics. So once again, when you have divisions that are undefinable and they're very open to people's interpretation, sometimes it's not a good division to have in a sport, because you can't define it and you can't put down rules on paper. But it is interesting, it's like watching a guest poser. You love to see Rami guest pose at 360 pounds on stage. It's not a bad idea to see some women who just don't have to worry about dieting and they just have their natural shape, big legs, round butt, people like that.
Somewhere Johnny Styles is sheep. Let's go to Car81. What is the ideal heart rate range for fasted cardio for someone on a low carb cycle diet versus a keto diet?
My feeling is the same. It doesn't matter what kind of a diet you're on, whether you're eating high carbs, low carbs, no carbs. what is the goal of doing cardio? It's to burn stored body fat, right? So you can't say what kind of cardio burns more calories, because calories don't mean anything. It's the kind of calories you're burning. Because if you do high intensity cardio, running, very high level stair climber, your body is going to use glucose, stored glucose or glycogen, as the fuel source, because your body cannot generate ATP or energy quick enough using stored body fat for high intensity activities. So here you are burning a lot of calories, okay, doing the high intensity activity, but you're burning the wrong kind of calories. You're burning stored glycogen. You're not using stored body fat. You might get your heart in better shape with a very HIT, type cardio, but you're not maximizing fat burning. When you do lower intensity cardio, all the calories that you're burning are from stored body fat, and that's what we want as a physique athlete. We want to lose body fat. So to maximize body fat, loss and minimize muscle loss, you do lower intensity cardio, and that goes for no matter what kind of diet you're on. Okay. Now, if you're trying to get in shape to do a triathlon or get in cardiovascular shape to do CrossFit, now the strategy is different. It's not to lose body fat, it's to get your heart in shape. So yeah, then high intensity cardio is way more valuable.
Let's go to, well, okay, I'll ask you this before I ask this question. Did you see the new video from Rich Piana's ex?
I did.
Speaking, you did? Okay.
Yes.
We're getting a lot of questions. People want you to comment on the video, what you think of what she said.
I'll be honest, when I watched the video, I was almost at the point of crying, because I felt the pain that she experienced. First of all, I can't even imagine what it would be like to be in the presence of someone that you love and then watch them just pass out and hit, fall to the ground and have to do CPR on them, have the paramedics come, and then to watch them over the course of the next couple of weeks die in front of your eyes, basically. I mean, that's really what happened to her. So I don't even know how to console someone like that, other than to say, we send all our love out to you and prayers, because that's a tough one. To recover from that, that's going to scar you for life, without a doubt. Having said that, I think that she was very accurate in everything she said, and I think she was very honest and truthful, except, when she addressed, probably shouldn't have mentioned it all, she addressed the powder that they found, chopped up on the table, and she tried to imply that it was that he was snorting his pre-workout. And she referenced actually a video that Johnny and I shot in FIBO, Germany a couple years ago, where I said, Rich, let's do something insane. I said, how about you snort some creatine on video, when he was working for Mutant? And he said, yeah, I'll do anything. And, so he did it, and it was really funny. It was a great video, but then I guess Mutant got all worried, and they asked us to take it down, and we did. But so she claims that he's continued to do that since that video. I don't buy that. I don't know what kind of drugs it might have been, but it seems more likely that it was probably some kind of recreational drug. Other than that, once again, I understand she's trying to protect the memory of the person she loved. She probably should have just not addressed it at all. But the video by itself, I thought, was a very honest, heartfelt video on her part, where she really just came across as a very real person. And like I said, I felt very sorry for her and for the loss. And hopefully, she'll recover from this and she'll become a better person, living through a tough situation like that. I hope, it sounds like 5% Nutrition is staying in business, and I don't know if she's working for them anymore or not, but hopefully Rich's legacy will live on after his death.
You're watching Ask Dave on RxMuscle.com. 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. Reminder, right now on RxMuscle.com, we have an episode of Iron Rage featuring Lee Priest. Lee Priest giving his thoughts on the passing of Rich Piana and Dallas McCarver, and Heavy Muscle Radio doing the same with Chris Aceto and Dave Palumbo. Shortly on RxMuscle.com, we're going to have our interview with Candice Lewis-Carter, the 2016-2017 Arnold figure champion. And then tomorrow afternoon, I believe, we're going to have a live with Jose Raymond. That's going to be going up. All the Iron Road to the Olympia videos on RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle channel. Let's go to Big Hi John. What did you find to be the best recovery method? Foam rolling, fascia stretching, IMS, static stretching, etc.
When I competed, on a regular basis. And I started getting massages. And it didn't really start till I hit about 300 pounds, because when I hit 300, I was always exhausted and always had like aches and pains. And someone put me in touch with this girl, Marianne, who became my massage therapist for the next 20 years, essentially, when I lived in New York. And she would come to my house, or I'd meet her at wherever she was working at the time, and I would get the massages like almost on a weekly basis, you know, when I was competing. And to me, you know what, they were invaluable. I felt great. I also did a lot of therapy with my friend Derlin Castro, who was an ART practitioner. And he actually, when he first took the course and got certified in the 90s, I was like his guinea pig, and then he continued to treat me throughout my career as well. And I felt that those two modalities together were terrific. That I didn't need anything else. The ART, when I got some injuries, or just needed an adjustment, my neck and back, and then the massage, body massage, full body massage on a weekly or bi-weekly basis tended to give me everything I needed. You know, every once in a while, if I had some kind of freak injury, you know, I would obviously do some icing or maybe, you know, go see a doctor or something like that. But pretty much throughout most of my career, that did it. I know they have a lot of these cryotherapies now out there. They have all kinds of, you know, crazy, intense things. And you know what? If I was still competing, I probably would try them all. The only thing that I did find that worked really well in certain times of injuries was acupuncture. I had a couple of weird injuries, like I had a nerve, I had irritated a nerve, and it was really irritating. It was really bothering the hell out of me, and I went for acupuncture, and that worked great. A couple times I've had a couple incidences like that. But on a regular basis, I think sports massage, ART, chiropractic is probably the mainstay for most bodybuilders.
Big, rather booby Bobby Traplord. That name always gets me. I eat about 90% clean in the off season, which comes to about 3 or 4 cheat meals a week. Is it better to eat those on one day or spread them out to get less insulin release, even though it'd make more days, or it may take more days over my 200 grams of daily carbs that I do?
You know, if you're doing 3 cheat meals a week, I mean, I'm assuming that you need the 3 cheat meals because you have a very fast metabolism. So I think it would be a good idea to spread them out. You don't want to do them back to back to back. I would space them out, you know, throughout the week. Now, I have a guy who I'm working with now who has such a fast metabolism. I have him eating McDonald's every single day, like I used to do back in the day, because he just can't gain weight. There's no more food I can give him. So rather than give him more food, I switched one of his meals for like a junky meal, like a McDonald's, you know, maybe like 2 quarter pounders with cheese and like a large fry. And he does that every day, you know, like exactly the way I did back in the day, and it seems to be working. So, you know, but if he starts getting too fat or start gaining too much weight, then I'll just cut it out, you know. So you got to kind of play with, you know, what works and what doesn't work for your body. I don't think eating all the cheat meals right in a row is probably the best idea, unless your metabolism is that fast that it requires it.
Chris Crutchley rather, has the same question that a lot of people have today. You saw the announcement yesterday, or a tease rather, by the Arnold Australia Federation, that there was going to be a big announcement. It was announced later that night. Obviously, they're tomorrow. Australia's tomorrow, our last night. The announcement was that Kevin Levrone is going to be competing at the 2018 Arnold Australia. So Tony Washington wants to know, what's the latest you've heard from Levrone in regard to how he's looking, and do you think he can recover enough of his physique to be competitive at the Arnold Australia?
Well, you got to remember that most of the guys who do the Arnold Australia are the same guys that do the Arnold Classic USA, you know, a week or 2 before. I don't know what this coming year, if it's going to be a week or 2 weeks before. Last year it was 2 weeks after the Arnold USA. So, I mean, we're talking about guys like Cedric McMillan, conceivably Dennis Wolf, if he makes the comeback, you know, or anyone else who, maybe Sean Roden, anyone else who jumps into it. So, you know, that's a tough show. That's almost Olympia, you know, type show. Obviously, Kevin is doing the show because he feels that he is going to be competitive by then. Kevin was supposed to do the Vancouver show this past summer, and he decided not to do it. Then he was going to do the European tour. He decided not to do that. I hope, you know, I'm assuming that if he made the commitment to Tony, he will definitely do the show, but you never know. If Kevin feels he's not ready at this point, I could see him putting it off. If Kevin does conceivably think he's going to be ready, and he's making that verbal commitment to Tony Doherty all the way in Australia, I have to believe that he's liking the way he looks. Have I seen the way he looks? No. So I don't know. His upper body seems to look really good. We've seen videos of that on his Instagram and Facebook. His legs remain to be seen. You know, it seems like he's squatting a lot of weight lately. I'm a Levrone fan. Always been a Levrone fan. Kevin knows that. We're friends, but I'm also a fan of his physique. So I'd love to see him step up and do some damage, make it, hope possibly place top 5 in that show. Would be tremendous. It's obviously adding a level of excitement to Tony's show because Levrone didn't commit to do the Arnold USA. He only committed to do the Australia. It's giving a level of excitement to Tony's show that separates itself from the Arnold the week or two before that. Because maybe it will create more hype for his show than the actual Arnold itself. I don't know. But I think it's a great move for Tony to get him in the show. I know that there's a lot of Levrone fans out in Australia that will probably be flocking to that expo now to watch the show in person because Kevin will be there. Kevin will probably make a tremendous amount of money because the Australian fans like to spend money and they like to see their champions up close. And so I think it's a smart move for everyone involved. Tony, Levrone, and the entire Australian countryside, so to speak. And it adds excitement to the sport.
Let's go to the Atomic Beast. Dave, what gives arms a thick look from the front view? My biggest physique flaw is my arms are very thin from the front view, and you mentioned you added more arm days to your routine during your career, so I was wondering if you had the same problem, and if so, what exercises can fix it?
I actually did less arm days, if you remember. I told people that instead of doing a 7-day split, I would do an 8-day split, and I would do biceps and forearms on their own day, nothing else. And I would do triceps on their own day, nothing else. So I prioritized arm training. And I did a lot more unilateral cable and dumbbell type of training with those so that I made sure that each arm worked independently. I felt a much greater contraction in the muscle when I used machines as opposed to free weights for my arms because I have a long arm and I found that I was able to really, have better tension on the muscle, not only on the way up, but on the way down as well using cable movements. I learned that from Vince Taylor. He had a long arm and he had great arms, and my arms came up a lot when I did that. Also, look, I'm about total transparency. I used Chris Clark synthesized, in my arms, Synthol, a product that, I've been, selling for probably 20 years now on Palumbo.com because I believe in it. I'm personal friends with Chris Clark. I think if it's used properly and in an artistic manner, it can certainly help the shape and the size of your arms. If it's used irresponsibly, it can look ridiculous. So the combination, I believe, of that with the targeted, unilateral cable type movement training arms, and I still train my arms heavy. I just used a lot of cable and isolated movements. To me, that's how I fixed my arms. But it's not for everyone. Lee Priest can pick up a dumbbell and do dumbbell curls or barbell curls, and his arms are huge. So, but he's a genetic freak. If you don't have good genetics, you have to use other strategies.
Rylan or Rinalin McDougal, your dark horses for the Olympia?
I think Josh Lenartowicz is a dark horse. I really do. Assuming that the trauma of finding, Dallas doesn't screw up his prep. I think if he can bring his best conditioning, I think he's a dark horse. I don't think a lot of people are really talking about him as a guy who could be in there, but I think he's a definite top 6 guy. I think he's got the mass to stand with these guys. When I've seen him in his best condition, he's got the conditioning to stand with these guys. I think he's your dark horse. Also, another guy you haven't heard a lot about because he hasn't competed all year is William Bonac. Remember, William Bonac was a top 5 Olympian last year. I don't think anyone ever expected that. Here's a guy who was a 212 competitor a couple years before that, made the move to the Open, and now he's a legitimate Olympia threat. So I think that those two guys, Lenartowicz and Bonac, have to be considered the 2 dark horses in the lineup.
Animal Viper, okay, so I've done everything possible to get my legs to grow. I have one of those messed up genetics where my legs will not respond even when I'm doing squats. It still won't grow. I'll do about 4 sets, whatever machine I need to hit. I use dumbbells as well for legs, slow traction, fast traction, trying to suffocate my legs with a lot of blood. And for years, nothing. I have a lot of strength in my legs, but it just doesn't want to grow. I don't know what else to do.
You can call Steve Bleckman up and do his asphyxiation training if you really want to. I'm just kidding. No, you know what I would do? I give out to a lot of my clients, I give out this power phase training where basically all you do for leg day is once every 7 days you go into the gym, you do 10 sets of squats. That's it, 10 sets of squats, and I think I have people finish off with a couple sets of leg extensions or just to warm up, like 2 or 3 sets, and then go and just do 10 sets of squats and leave the gym. That's it. Do that for 6 weeks. I guarantee you, if you're using full range motion, wide stance, and you start building weight as you get stronger, you're going to put mass on those legs. I promise you that. I actually got the idea from Jerry Scalise, because he used to always say that all you got to do is squat for legs. He would never do anything else. He didn't do curls. He didn't do leg extensions, nothing. And you know what? Try it for 6 weeks, 10 sets of squats. All you're focusing on is squats, basically. You don't have to worry about anything else, so you should give 100% to every set. Perfect form, wide stance, all the way down past parallel, with good form. Wear your belt, wear knee wraps when the weight gets heavy. Whatever you got to do, protect those joints, but that's the way to make the legs grow. That is your mass building movement.
Rob Team Fisher UK BFF. Dave, your thoughts on follistatin peptide, good or bad, and how to use it?
On paper, follistatin sounds great because it inhibits the myostatin protein in our bloodstream. If you get rid of myostatin, you unlock muscle growth, because myostatin inhibits muscle growth. The less myostatin you have, the more growth that you have. So theoretically, follistatin seems like it should work, but it doesn't. Now, whether it doesn't work because you're not really inhibiting myostatin, or it doesn't work because your body's constantly cranking out myostatin, and unless you're infusing follistatin through an IV 24 hours a day, you're not going to get the effect. Now, I have talked to people behind the scenes, and it seems like, and once again, I don't know for sure. I have good sources that are testing it. We'll see if it works. There's supposedly now these kits out there selling that actually contain adenoviruses, which are attenuated viruses that you put into your body, and they actually have these little cleaving enzymes that will cleave out your myostatin gene, supposedly, in all your cells, because what viruses do is they go to all the cells of the body. They get into the cell, and then they're programmed, these viruses, basically, to cut the myostatin gene out. So your body will no longer express the myostatin protein, and theoretically then that should unlock muscle growth. I haven't seen it done. I know a guy who's supposedly doing it. I'm gonna collect data on the whole thing and see if it actually works. Could be a scam. I'm not sure. It sounds great, because the technology came out a couple years ago. It's called CRISPR. CRISPR actually, it's almost like a little packaged molecular package that actually has these little enzymes that can, like a scissor, cut certain genes out of your body and get rid of them. They're using it more for disease states where they can remove the diseased gene. But obviously you knew it was eventually going to be used for sports enhancement. Whether that actually is occurring or if it's a big tall tale, I don't know yet, but that seems much more likely as the solution to the myostatin problem rather than follistatin. So my advice to you, save your money, don't buy follistatin.
Rock Lockridge. Dave, how's the shoulder, and have you learned anything while going through your recovery that bodybuilders could apply to their own programs?
What I learned is don't destroy your shoulders to begin with, and you won't have to go through what I went through. I'll tell you this. I'm going to the doctor tomorrow, so I was going to film an update there. But since the surgery, I haven't been in any pain, zero. As a matter of fact, I'm in less pain than before the surgery because they removed the diseased joint and they replaced the joint. And aside from the first week where I was a little sore and on some pain meds, after the first week, I really haven't been sore. I felt vulnerable more than anything, because I didn't want to tear anything in there. Because what they have to do is they have to cut through your long head of your bicep and one of your rotator cuff, the subscapularis muscle, to get to the joint. And then what they do is they sew it back together. So you got to let those muscle tendons heal, which is what I'm going through now. I'm almost at week 7. I'm starting to use my arm more, as you can see, because the tendons don't feel as vulnerable. But I'm not lifting anything heavy yet, in boxes, nothing like that, because I don't want to risk tearing it. Once the doctor gives me clearance to start doing some band work and little rehab stuff, I think I'll be able to give you guys a better, I guess you could say, understanding of how I'm actually progressing and feel. I'll tell you this: when I move the arm around, okay, I don't have any joint pain. It's not there. I do feel weakness in there, but I don't feel pain. So in that sense, it was a success. How functional I will be once I go back to the gym and allowed to start lifting weights at the 3-month mark, that will determine whether it was a true success or not. But in the sense of it removing the pain from me, I'm thrilled.
We'll take one more question from Caleb Gritch. Dave, how important is it getting meals in when it comes to weight loss? I know when gaining meal timing and getting all one's nutrients in on a daily basis is a must, but what about when dieting?
Well, when dieting, you don't want to miss meals either. You don't want to lose muscle. It's important to infuse your body with the right amount of protein every 2 to 3 hours. Okay, the reason being, if you don't provide the right amino acids and you're in a calorie deprived state, you could risk your body cannibalizing muscle tissue to get the amino acids it needs to, number one, repair muscle tissue, number two, make enzymes and hormones and skin and nails and hair and all the things that are made from protein in the body. So the most important thing to do when you're dieting is to make sure you get your meals in a timely fashion. You can't go 6 hours without a meal and then try to eat 2 meals in one shot. That's not going to do it. Okay, there's no storage facility for protein in the body. So if you're not eating protein on a regular basis and you go a long time without protein, your body will cannibalize muscle tissue. So while it's important not to overeat when you're dieting, because then you won't lose weight, you don't want to miss meals.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi, reminding you the Iron Road to the Olympia is in full swing right now. Interviews, analysis. We're trying to get an iron debate scheduled for tomorrow. We have some big names lined up over the course of the next 2 weeks. Keep it locked to RxMuscle.com and the RxMuscle YouTube channel. For Dave Palumbo and Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.